And in this video, I will discuss about or continuing from the last video, that is about testing. We're discussing about testing, various types of testings. And we have started in the last video, that is unit testing. So here you can see a comparison between white box and black box testing. So in case of white box testing, potentially infinite number of paths have to be tested in case of white box. And white box testing often tests what is done instead of what should be done, and it cannot detect missing. We cannot detect missing use cases. Means we are not dealing with the input cases or test cases that are going to be inputted in the coding. So we don't need to think about those test cases. That is why we might miss those use cases, because in case of white box testing, we try to at least give some input in every part, or to check the conditional branching, or to check the looping, like that. So we might miss some cases. And also we try to check only what is done. We are not thinking about what we'll get for every input. Rather than that, we try to only understand how the execution will occur. Is there any wrong in case of conditions, in case of looping parameters, like that. Both types of testings are needed, like white box and black box. Both types are needed. White box testing and black box testings are the extreme ends of a testing continuum. So both are important and extreme important. And at the extreme ends of testing continuum, any choice of test case lies in between and depends on the following. So if you choose any test cases, and what and where that lies in between and depends on the following points. Those are like number of possible logical path. Whatever the logical path we can find using the white box testing, into that in that number of testing possible scenario, possible logical paths, the number of test cases might vary. In that way, also nature of input data, it might be float, it might be integer. In that scenario also, input data might change, so number of test cases might change. So that is why nature of the input data also important to consider while we creating the test cases. And also it is important to think about the amount of computation. For some input, the computation time might be more. For some input, computation time of the coding or programming codes or lines of code will be lesser. So that is also one thing to be considered while choosing the test cases. How much amount of time it will going to cost, is going to cost while you compute the code. And also complexity of the algorithm is important, and data structures. So these are the four main major points that need to be taken care of while you choose the test cases. In case of black box testing, you have understand that in the last video, that potential combinatorial explosion of test cases might be there. Valid and invalid data, often not clear whether the selected test case uncover a particular error. So we don't know how the logics are going on in case of black box testing, and that is why we are not clear about whether your test cases will cover or uncover any particular error, and does not discover extraneous use cases. So we might not find out extraneous use cases. And basically, uh, so testing steps are like this. We need to select what has to be measured. Point is that we need, if we are thinking about analysis, then we need to understand the, or need to analyze the completeness of the requirements, whether the requirements are complete or not. And design, we need to design the there is a design tested for cohesion, and implementation, that is code for test. That is, three types of testing can be done. Means three types of measurement can be done in case of a project or in case of a software development, system development. First is analysis. Analysis is completeness of the requirements, whether all requirements are complete or not by the software developed. And the design, whatever design you have created, we need to test that design for cohesion. Cohesion is means the dependency between the modules, intra module dependency, and also implementations means how your code is going to work or execute. That is done by using the code testing procedure. Another step is that decide how the testing is done, means how the testing will work or how the testing will follow. First, you go through code inspection, that is walking through, that is formal one, and proofs designed by contract, then black box or white box, and then select integration testing strategy. We'll go for that in the next part, but in this step is we try to understand how the testing is going to be done. And select the integration testing strategy: big bang, bottom up, top down, sandwich. Four types of integration testings are there, so we might choose any one of them. And then third one is develop test cases. So for any scenario of this type of scenario, like whether you are going to analyze the correct completeness of the requirements, whether you going to test the cohesion, whether you're going to code the test regarding the implementation, or regarding the proofs, regarding the code inspection, or regarding the black box, white box, or integration testing strategies, we need to develop the test cases. A test case is a set of test data or situations that will be used to exercise the unit, that is code module system being tested or about the attribute being measured. So test case is a set of test data or situations that will be used to exercise the unit. Unit might be code, unit might be module or system. That data or situations that will be used to exercise these units being tested or about the attribute being measured. Whatever the attribute we are going to measure need to be measured using the data, test data. Create the test oracle. An oracle contains of the predicted result for a set of test cases. So whatever test cases you are going to choose, you need to create the table, or you need to create a oracle or a database where you will put the predicted results for every set of test cases. This oracle has to be written down before the actual testing takes place. So before taking actual testing is done, you need to create this oracle so that you can match the predicted results with the output results, so that you can say that how much good your software is, or how the software is working. Is it accurate enough, is it suitable enough, like that you need to, or you can measure using that test oracle, because you are going to put the information of predicted results for each set of test cases in the oracle beforehand, before the actual testing takes place. So main major part actually here is the developing the test cases. So what is the guidelines for test case selection? So you need to analyze knowledge about functional requirements. In case of black box testing, you need to go with the use cases, expected input data, and invalid input data. So use cases might be, you can use the equivalence partitioning method, but also you need to think about expected input data. Whatever the expected input data means, whatever the user going to input in the real time. So that type of expected input data need to be think about. And also invalid input data. Suppose in some cases, suppose you cannot put 0, because that if you put 0 as a denominator or numerator, some exception might occur or some error might occur. So in that case, that 0 will be invalid input data. So that also need to think about during that black box testing. So you have to analyze the knowledge of the functional requirements. Okay, again you need to use the design knowledge about system structure, algorithm, data structure. So that is white box testings. So you need to also think about this, or you need to use the design knowledge. You need to, in case of black box testing, you need to use the analysis knowledge. In case of white box testing, you need to use the design knowledge, that is control structures, test branches, loops, etc. And also in case of data structures, you need to use test records, fields, arrays, like that. So for different scenarios of data structures, different control structure, different data structure, your test cases might be different, and that is why you need to understand about, or you need to have the knowledge about the system structure, algorithms, and the data structures. And again, in third, you need to use the implementation knowledge about the algorithms. How the algorithm will work, you need to understand. You need to use that implementation knowledge. For example, force division by zeros that I have said here. In case of embedded input data, you cannot put division by zero. So that is a one case need to be think about. So here also the same thing, implementation knowledge need to used regarding the algorithms, like force division by zero. Use sequence of test cases for interrupt handler. Suppose you are putting a series of test cases in a sequence manner, and by using that sequence of test cases, you can analyze the interruption handler of the procedure, of the coding programming environment. So unit testing heuristics, here what is the thing you need to be done is that create unit test as soon as object design is completed. So whenever you design the object, you need to create a unit test, or you need to go for unit testing as soon as the object design is completed. Whenever you created the object design, you need to go for the unit test. It might be black box test, that is test the use cases and functional model. In case of white box test, test the dynamic model. So that is two part. And also you can go for data structure test, test the object model. So whenever the object is created, you can go for this unit testing. Then develop the test cases. Develop test cases means your main goal is, already we know that, find a minimal number of test cases to cover as many parts as possible. In case of white box testings, cross check the test cases to eliminate duplicates. You need to cross check the test cases so that you can eliminate the duplicate values of test cases, because it will use lots of times for some programs. That is why you need to reduce the number of test cases. That is also one major important role in case of creating the or developing the test cases, and that is why you need to cross check the test cases to eliminate duplicates. And also next step is that dash check your source code. You need to check your source code so that you can reduce testing time. You might not be required to go for every lines of code, because some lines of code might not be that important, but some like looping or conditional, those lines of codes is very important. So you can reduce the testing time by checking your source code. And also create a test harness. Test drivers and test stubs are needed for integration testing. So you can create these test drivers and test stubs for integration testing. And 6, describe the test oracle that has been discussed in the previous slides, where you need to create a test oracle where you will store the test cases along with their predicted results, often the results of the first successfully executed test. So here actually in the test oracle we try to put often the result of the first successfully executed test, also the expected values or predicted values of the test. Execute the test cases. Don't forget regression testing, and re-execute test cases every time a change is made. So for every time whenever you are going to change anything in case of your code, then you need to re-execute every test cases that you have developed, so that it maintains same output, or it does not give any bad output or unwanted results from the written code. So you need to re-execute the test cases every time a change is made. Compare the results of a test with the test oracle. That is the last step. You need to test the result with the test oracle. So but in this step also you can automate this process as much as possible to reduce the time of testing. This is OOT, means object oriented testing strategy. Here class testing is the equivalent of unit testing. So in case of object oriented programming model, you can go with the class testings, which is equivalent to the unit testings. If there is no testing of classes, then what will be the point? Operations within the class are tested. In case of class testings, you can go with the operations within the classes are tested means whatever the function using in the classes you can test using different test cases. And also state behavior of the class is examined. Whatever the state behavior of the class, how that state is going to change, and that you need to examine. Integration applied three different strategies, levels of abstractions: trait based, use based, or cluster based. That is, integration applied three different strategies. When you integrate different classes, then we go with these three different strategies or levels of abstractions. Trait based testing, that is, integrates the set of classes required to respond to one input or event. So when you integrate a set of classes, you might examine by giving one input to understand how all that integrated classes are working. Also, you can go with the use-based testing, that is, integrate the set of classes required to respond one use case. Cluster testing is that integrates the set of classes required to demonstrate one collaboration. So these three types of abstraction level for understanding or for testing when you are integrating a set of classes. So here in this diagram you can see we have discussed the state diagram in one video. Here you can see this is state diagram for account class. Here empty account, open the empty account, set up an account, deposit the initial amount of money, working account, that is the working procedure of the account. You might withdraw some money from the account, you might deposit some money in the account, or you might want to know the information about the balance credit sections of the account. So that is working part of the account. Then you can go for withdrawal, that is final part, going to the networking part, or you can say non-working part. Then you can close the account whenever. So that is the final state. So the test to be designed should achieve all state coverage. That is one very important point. Whenever you are testing this type of system, you will need to choose that type of test cases which will flow every possible part of the state diagram. That is, the operation sequence should cause the account class to make transitions through all allowable states. So that whatever input you are going to give, that going to go through every possible or allowable states of the object. So that is about behavior testing of the states of the object. So again, who tests the software? It might be developer or it might be independent tester. So but in case of developer, understand the system but will test gently and is driven by delivery point of view. So that developer try to test the software and in a mind with delivery point of view. And in case of independent tester, must learn about the system but will attempt to break it and is driven by quality. So in case of independent tester, the testing of the software will be done by or keeping in mind about the quality of the software, and that user or that tester will try to break your code or try to found the error in your code. But in case of developer, perspective is about delivery, means how well enough you can deliver the software for the user. So that is two different perspective for two different type of tester. So developer is one kind of tester, independent tester is one kind of tester. Independent tester might be any user or a specialized person. So from this slide onwards, I'll try to put one more video in case of testing, and again I'll try to go through more topics related to testing and regarding integration testing and all. And till then, please go through this context through the books and also the literature review. Literature exists in the research forum. If you have any question, please let me know. I'll try to resolve over Google Meet. So that's it. Thank you.